Hello and welcome back to Devon Pond Plants. We're very often asked, how do I keep my water clear in my pond? And by clear, most people mean clear of blanket weed, duckweed and green water. That's the main weeds that they're talking about. And so I thought I'd just talk about some of the issues, why it happens in the first place that you get infestations of any of those plants and what you can do about it. So I think it would be helpful to start with why you would get blanket weed and duckweed growing in your pond. Any of you who are frequent visitors to our YouTube website will have seen us doing a video on how to build a garden pond, and this one in front of me is the pond that we built roughly 3 months ago. And as you can see, it's all filled out very nicely since then, and I can show you examples of almost every kind of weed in this pond, but it's not taking over, and there are a number of reasons why that is. Have we got blanket weed? Yes, there's some blanket weed over there growing in the bottom. Have we got duckweed? I can see a tiny little flake of duckweed there, and I think I spotted another one over there. So yes, these weeds are present. It's not that we haven't got them, but they are not taking over. So what are the reasons for that? Well, firstly, when the pond was filled up in the first place, we filled it up with spring water. Now, hand on heart, I haven't tested our spring water to find out what's in it, but I'm fairly confident that in a rural area like this, with the water largely coming from Dartmoor, it won't be very high in nutrients. And the two nutrients in question really are the phosphates and the nitrates. If you live in a city area, you'll probably find your tap water is very high in both phosphates and nitrates. And both of these are plant foods, and the phosphates in particular are very helpful to the growth of blanket weed and other algae. So if you fill up your pond in the first place with tap water, as you may have to do, you may have no choice, you're going to have a battle from the outset, and blanket weed is going to grow quite fast. There are, of course, very many types of chemicals you can buy in aquarium shops and garden centres that claim to stop blanket weed from growing, stop duckweed from growing. Just put it in your pond and all your problems are gone. I don't use any of them. I never have used any of them really in this on this site here. I've just got one thing to say. I would say that the ones that are based on a biological system, so they are a bacterial complex that you put in the pond to help to break down any sludge or organic material, are far more likely to work than those that just are based on minerals or chemicals. Generally speaking, they may solve one problem and create another. I've had problems with the bleach-based ones affecting lilies and oxygenators quite badly in the past, and so therefore I don't recommend using any of these things. I think a natural system is by far the best system, so I would say don't buy any of the chemicals. You'll probably end up chasing your tail. What you have to try to achieve is a pond in which the water has a very low level of these dissolved nutrients, and secondly, and most importantly probably, is to provide a large number of other plants that are producing surface cover, stopping the sun directly falling on the bottom of the pond. And that's where the algae normally starts, as a film on the liner of the pond or on the bottom of the pond, and as it grows it starts to detach, and it also grows in amongst the foliage of other plants. The third thing is a little bit of maintenance. You wouldn't expect your garden to remain weed-free completely without any kind of weeding, and it's exactly the same with a garden pond, and it's often just a case of laziness and not tackling the thing soon enough. There's some very simple methods of removing excess weed. You can buy these types of nets in any garden centre or aquarium shop, aquarium nets and pond nets of various sorts, and these are all of varying use to take out different sorts of weeds. A very fine mesh net for the duckweeds and a coarser mesh net for general debris and some blanket weed. And I find it very helpful to use a bamboo cane like this one. I just split the end of the bamboo cane and wedge a little stone or something like that in it, just to give it a little bit of grip on the end. And then if I want to remove the blanket weed that's over there, a little patch of blanket weed in the pond, I can just twiddle the cane in amongst that weed, and as it starts to pick up around the end of the cane, it all starts to draw in, and then you can lift the cane out of the water with said blanket weed on the end of the cane and just pull it off and dump it into a bucket. And if you just do this on a regular basis, every now and again in little patches where it starts to grow, it'll stop it from getting any worse. And every bit that you remove is removing the nutrients on which it survived in the first place. So it's a double-edged sword. You're getting rid of those nutrients and you're getting rid of the blanket weed at the same time. If you have a great deal of duckweed in your pond, it's a signal that there's two things probably wrong. Firstly, there's a lot of nutrients in the pond as before, but secondly, that your pond is probably quite shady. Duckweed does not generally like growing in open ponds in full sun with lots of competition from other plants. It's present here, but it's looking sickly and yellow where it is there, and it's not multiplying. Whereas in our growing tanks, we do have issues with duckweed because there's a lot of freshly potted plants about, very high levels of nutrients, and often the area is quite shaded by the sheer amount of plants that's in there. So it's a problem just yards away, but isn't a problem in the pond here. So your pond doesn't have to stay like a hospital operating table, but it is very helpful to remove any excess organic material, that's dead leaves, dead material from plants on the bottom of the pond. To do this regularly so you don't get a build-up, and preferably in the autumn for the main clear up, so as you remove a lot of the material before it starts to rot in the pond. Almost all of these plants are deciduous, so in October, November, all the foliage will just go brown, go flat, and then start rotting away into the pond. And if you can stop that from happening, you'll be a long way towards helping stop the growth of algae in your pond. If the problem in your pond is green water, so not blanket weed and not duckweed, but just pea soup type water, that's unicellular algae, very, very tiny algae particles. And that is usually a very temporary phenomenon, because once the zooplankton start to grow, and they will, that algae will disappear and the zooplankton bloom will happen. You'll find millions of Daphnia in your pond and they'll mop it all up. And when they've finished it all, they'll have no food left. The Daphnia will all die. Their little bodies will sink to the bottom of the pond, releasing the nutrients, and background you go again. And over a period of time, all of this will flatten out into a more of a smooth curve rather than ups and downs, and the pond will attain a balance. So to recap, lots of plants in your pond to provide competition for the algae and to provide surface cover, especially the most useful plants like Persicaria amphibia, Menyanthus trifoliata, bog bean, Potentilla palustris, things that are going to raft out over the surface of the pond and provide cover. Plants with floating leaves like lilies and frogbit, and oxygenating plants in the bottom of the pond which are rapidly growing and taking up nutrients and can be harvested regularly to remove any excess. That way you can keep your pond nice and clean and healthy like this one and enjoy it. If you'd like to know more about ponds, constructing them and planting them, you could do worse than to buy my book, which is titled Ponds, A Practical Guide to Design, Construction and Planting. And it's available on Amazon, it's available on my website, and most bookshops will be able to get that for you. And I hope you enjoy reading it.